Hey there folks, Rella here. This episode is going to be a hard look at the two unlockable grenades for the Infiltrator class. That's the Decoy and EMP Grenades. We'll look at the specifics of each and then cover some strategy and weapon ideas to help you get the most use out of these grenades. Let's talk first about the Decoy grenade, as it's pretty straightforward, but if you're only interested in learning about the EMP grenade, then feel free to fast forward using the link in the description below. Out of the two Infiltrator tacticals, the Decoy grenades are probably the most fun to use when you're playing that sort of sneaky role inside an enemy base. If the description isn't plain enough, the intent of the Decoy grenade is to trick your enemies into thinking you're somewhere you're not, and it supposedly does this by making gunfire noises and providing enemies with a false radar signature. They're going to cost you 50 infantry resources per use and cost 150 certs to unlock. Decoy grenades throw like most heavy tactical grenades, so they have less bounce than a frag, and the grenade is going to activate 3.5 seconds after it leaves your hand. It doesn't have to hit a wall or sit on the ground to activate, and it'll actually activate in the air as long as those 3.5 seconds have passed. It will create noises for about 12 seconds from wherever the grenade is currently at. I say currently at because the grenades will also slowly roll down sloped surfaces, so you could technically create the illusion of movement with your decoy. The noises that the grenade emits are the standard unsilenced carbine noise, and it fires rather sporadically. I haven't actually tested these sounds from other factions, so it might be different between them. But this is somewhat interesting to me because if you're alone hacking consoles and making obnoxious cloaking noises every now and then, people generally understand that there is an infiltrator nearby, not a light assault, not an engineer. So the fact that they decided to use noises which you can't actually create from the infiltrator class is something that I don't quite understand. Maybe the intent was to make people think that there are two of you instead of just a lone infiltrator. I don't really know. But in any case, the description of the decoy grenade says that it creates a radar signature for enemies. When I tested it with a couple of subscribers, this wasn't actually the case. They were able to hear the audio, but no signature showed up on the minimap, regardless of how close or far away from the grenade they were. We tested this up close, far away, behind cover, while I was cloaked, and the results were all the same. So I'm interested in seeing how often this bug occurs. Is it every time? Or is it, did it have something to do with where we were testing it, which happened to be in the bottom right hand corner of Ezimir? Let me know in the comments below if you've ever actually had the decoy grenade show you a false radar signature. That's something that I would really like to know. Now, radar signatures aside, you have to keep in mind that there is a lot of minimap clutter in the game already. So unless you're in a rather remote or desolate area, we are generally using sound a lot to detect where the bad guys are coming from. I don't think I've ever had enemies not pay attention to the decoy grenade when it was used properly. As far as strategy goes, I've actually found the decoy very useful and effective, especially when trying to keep people from looking for the guy making the cloaking noises. So to use a decoy grenade proper, you just chuck it away from your hiding spot, preferably somewhere you'll be able to get a shot off on the enemy when they come to investigate. This can be used offensively to set up those kill shots like I mentioned, or defensively just to throw them off your trail, but most of the time it's really a combination of the two. I'm going to show you a couple examples of what I'm talking about. In this clip, I'm the only one trying to cap this location, and I've already killed them a couple of times already, so they definitely know I'm here. I toss one into an empty room because I know the enemies are on their way, just based on the spawn timers. And one of them probably heard me cloaking, so he comes to investigate. Take him out. And this guy right here, poor thing, is paying attention to the decoy grenade. He's actually trying to sneak up on the person that doesn't exist. So in this clip, I'm in a tower, and they just mow through one of my allies, and they definitely know that I'm around. There is an enemy max nearby, so I kind of want to stay away from him. So I toss out a decoy and flank the lot of them. The max and his buddies leave the point eventually to investigate, and I'm able to pick off the heavy with his back turned to me. So it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Enemies hear a sound, they run towards the sound, and hopefully you get the jump on them. I don't have the suppressor unlocked for the SMG yet, but a silenced weapon is extremely synergetic with decoys. The enemy already thinks they know where you are, so you don't really want to give them a reason to think otherwise, and a suppressor is just going to help with the general confusion. You can consider also using this in conjunction with your sensor dart. I honestly don't use the sensor dart much because of the minimap is usually just too cluttered for me to like sit there and stare at and decipher. But if enemies are camped out, remember that the sensor dart requires movement in order to reveal enemy locations. Decoy grenades can encourage the campers to move around a little bit and then give up their position. Overall, I think the decoy grenade is a lot of fun to use, and I'm actually very glad that I purchased it. It definitely suits a particular playstyle, but the alternatives are a frag grenade, of course, and the EMP grenade. For frag grenades, the red flashing grenade indicator usually means that people want to run away, but decoy grenades actually do the opposite. They lure them into view or wherever I really want them to go. For big encounters, the sounds generated from the grenade are likely to get lost and they won't really help you at all, but for these solo infiltration missions, decoys are extremely valuable. And now we go on to the extremely quirky EMP grenade. EMP grenades are theoretically amazing. They can deplete shields, destroy enemy equipment, and completely erase your heads-up display. They're going to cost you a low 50 resources just like the decoy grenades, but cost 200 certs to unlock. EMP grenades detonate instantly if they hit the enemy directly, but will detonate shortly after touching any non-infantry surface like a wall or a floor. The area of effect is actually pretty large. Here's a side-by-side clip to show you just how big it is. The effect goes through walls and cover, but there is a stipulation that we're going to get into later. Friendly fire is also possible, so please watch out. And the grenades do affect max units. It won't drop their HP or their shields, but it will make their HUD fuzzy. And as a side note, in addition to making the HUD fuzzy, if anybody is using a night vision scope, the black border, so the overlay, will actually be removed, leaving your entire screen full of night vision. It's the same effect as if you turn off the draw on your HUD. EMP grenades will destroy enemy equipment, to include mines and C4, but they will not destroy allied equipment to the best of my knowledge. Unfortunately, you're not going to get any experience from this grenade at all, as affected enemies don't give you assist bonuses like so many things in PlanetSide 2. So those are the basics, but here are where things really get a little bit strange. When you're hit with an EMP, your shields are depleted and your HUD goes fuzzy. The further you are from the blast, the less fuzzy your HUD is, but the effect will actually last the same duration, which is 10 seconds. So shields are going to be dropped for that same 10-second duration before they start regenerating again, unless, and here's the catch, unless you're out of line of sight of the grenade's impact. If you are out of line of sight, your shields are going to drop, but they're going to start regenerating instantly. So as an example, if you chuck an EMP at a wall, enemies on the other side of that wall are going to get the same fuzzy HUD and they're going to get the shield drop, but it's not going to stay down, it's going to just regenerate instantly. And this makes the grenade a lot more difficult to use to its full effect, but it does give you an interesting opportunity that you can abuse to your advantage, and I'll speak a little bit more on that later. The last thing that the EMP grenade does or is supposed to do is deplete your energy supply. If you're a heavy assault, medic, light assault, or infiltrator, presumably your energy should be depleted. Right now the effect only works fully on infiltrators. So the good news is that you can pull an infiltrator out of stealth with an EMP grenade and their energy bar is going to be set to 0. The bad news is that you can easily screw yourself over if you get caught in the blast. On heavy assaults, it will deplete their mesh generators and remove them, but only if they are already active when you toss it. So if they're not already glowing and you hit them with an EMP grenade, then they can simply activate it and they'll actually have the full energy bar, like nothing ever happened. And on light assaults and medics, it simply doesn't work at all. Given the drawbacks, this is a very difficult grenade to use correctly, even more so from short range. My initial suggestion, while you're getting used to tossing the EMP grenades without screwing yourself over, is to use them with medium range to long range builds. Now remember that you are dead in the water if you get caught in the area of effect, so go into the fight with the mentality that this grenade serves a very specific purpose. Oftentimes we have a frag grenade, so we decide to just chuck it first to get it out of the way, maybe rack up a couple kills, but with the EMP grenade, you're going to need to follow it up or it will be like nothing ever happened. When draining enemies, make sure you keep the impact in line of sight. This way the shields actually stay down for that maximum duration instead of recharging instantly, and it gives you a chance to kill them. This is essentially cutting enemy HP in half for those 10 seconds, so make sure you take advantage of it. The missing HUD is generally not a huge issue unless you're fighting groups of enemies at night. At nighttime, camouflage kind of blends together, so not having a HUD is extremely disorienting for groups of enemies who are getting shot at. They're going to be firing on their friends, and they're going to be taking bullets because they think that their friends are actually their friends and they're not. So as far as general confusion goes, nighttime group fights are a great reason to use this grenade. Weapons with a quick time to kill are most suitable for wiping out groups of unshielded enemies. So think about either the semi-auto scout rifles, SMGs, or semi-auto sniper rifles. Each faction has access to one semi-auto sniper rifle with lower range optics, and these are likely the best option if they suit your playstyle. When you know where enemy explosives are, use an EMP to clear them out. I personally like putting anti-personnel mines next to my Sunderer to keep enemy engineers away from it, and I imagine others do the same thing as well. Anti-tank mines are also found in choke points, so in front of the vehicle spawn at Crown or in those narrow pathways. And if an enemy infantry or even a shiny new vehicle is rolling over the top of these mines, toss down an EMP grenade and it is going to auto-trigger them and hopefully rack up a couple kills for you. An interesting use for the EMP grenade that can be more difficult to master is using it on yourself as a shield reset. So let's say that you're at long range from your enemies and they've managed to land a few shots on you. Your shields are down at this point, so you don't really want to peek your head out. You have two options. You can, of course, wait for them to come back, or you can toss an EMP grenade on the other side of some cover, forcing it to jumpstart your shields. Because remember that the EMP grenade isn't going to suppress your shields for that full 10-second duration if it's out of line of sight. The detriment, of course, is that you won't have a heads-up display, but if you know where your enemies are and you're trying to get back into the fight and finish them off, this is a skillful option to explore. Overall, the EMP grenade has some very interesting uses, but I'm not really convinced that it's worth replacing my frag grenade with in terms of usefulness, at least not until some of the bugs are worked out. An EMP grenade, I think, should give minor experience for an assist bonus when enemies under the effects of an EMP grenade die, and it should drain the energy from all classes, especially heavies who aren't currently using their shields, and the shield reduction should persist regardless of line of sight. Those three changes would make a world of difference for the EMP grenade, creating a very viable alternative to the frag grenade. But until then, it's definitely fun to play with, and I suggest doing so because you might have more success with it than I have had. But that is all for this episode. Before I go, I'd like to say thank you to the subscribers who volunteered to help for this episode. That's Parapros from Matherson, Gardam from Soltech, Fosul from Jaeger. And if you found this video interesting or helpful, please feel free to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the channel. And if you all have interesting findings or uses for the Decoy or EMP grenades, feel free to share them in the comments below for me and everyone else watching. Thanks very much, folks. Rel signing off.